Rapidly advancing climate change is raising sea levels, forcing humanity to seek refuge in space. Decades pass as most of the population relocates to shelters built between Earth's and Moon's orbits. However, after the move, shelters 8, 12, and 13 unite, forming the Adrian Republic. They attack the remaining shelters, starting a decades-long war against the Allied force. Meanwhile, on Earth, the humans left behind are making their living producing weapons and parts for war robots. The Army's best soldier is the legendary Captain Young. She awakens in an abandoned city after an explosion, surrounded by robots attacking her. Youngi defends herself with precise shots and the clever use of a grappling hook attached to her weapon. She easily defeats the humanoid robots, but a new, more resilient quadrupedal model appears. Youngi strategically hides and shoots the robot, setting it on fire. The robot, however, has fire extinguishers and quickly recovers. Youngi then uses her grappling hook to stack metal beams, bringing them down on the robot to immobilize it. Hiding behind a car for the final attack, she is distracted by a small doll hanging from the rearview mirror. This distraction allows the robot to shoot her. Youngi is thrown back and, upon seeing her broken hand, discovers she is an android. Suddenly, the city disappears. The real Youngi died in combat years ago. In reality, a group of scientists, led by Youngi's daughter, Seo-hyun, uses a copy of her mother's brain to create the perfect soldier. They try to replicate her last battle in simulations, but the android Youngi always loses at the same point. The team, which also includes the project director, Sang-hoon, gives a presentation to the military's top brass. The director tries to sell the project, explaining how they're mapping Youngi's brain to develop the most advanced artificial intelligence, but the military isn't impressed, as the android hasn't yet overcome the simulation. They claim the war would have already been won if the real Youngi hadn't failed. Without a solution to the problem, the government won't fund the project. After the presentation, Sang-hoon reassures Seo-hyun, stating that she has his full support and that the president expects great results from her. He knows that Youngi's daughter was taken in by the company as a child after losing her mother. Seo-hyun works with rookie Jae-kyung to analyze the latest model. They reactivate Youngi's brain, which, despite still considering itself human, despairs at finding itself in a robotic body. The pain consumes her, but Seo-hyun deactivates the sensors, turning her despair into fury. Youngi demands to know what they did to her. Because the brain copy is so damaged, Seo-hyun orders its destruction. Jae-kyung, a fan of Youngi, calls her a hero, but Seo-hyun reveals that her mother only went to war as a mercenary to pay for treatment for a tumor in her lung. Seo-hyun's surgery took place on the same day her mother died. She wonders if her mother regretted sacrificing herself, and Jae-kyung suggests she ask the android, since the brain copy shares memories. Seo-hyun considers the idea but seems fearful of the answer. Returning home by train, Seo-hyun observes a mother and her son, remembering the last day she saw her own mother. Youngi hugged her before leaving for battle, promising to return and giving her a good luck hug. After the annual ethics test, which everyone takes to prove they are not androids, Seo-hyun visits her doctor. He confirms that the tumor in her lung has returned. She has only 3 months left to live. The surgery and her mother's sacrifice were in vain. The doctor explains that the best option is to copy her brain to a prosthetic body, but the law only protects those who choose option A, which is extremely expensive. Option B is cheaper but entails the loss of civil rights. Option C, chosen by Youngi to pay for her daughter's surgery, is free but does not consider the person human. The copied brain becomes the property of the company, which can make thousands of clones. Seo-hyun thinks about it and remembers that the company gave her an action figure of her mother, promising that she would be a hero forever. However, she still questions whether it was the best choice. She ends the day visiting her mother's comatose body, which is kept in a special chamber. The next day, Sang-hoon, seeking a different outcome, orders the android Youngi to be wounded in the leg before the simulation. The pain is intense, and the android is easily subdued. Her will to fight diminishes, but just as the enemy is about to kill her, a new area of her brain lights up. She gets up and defeats the robot with her fists. Sang-hoon is elated and decides to present the new discovery to the top management, but the president is not there. The team is greeted by the new head of the product development department. Sang-hoon, who has never seen this department, fears that weapons development will be curtailed. Without answers, they are dismissed. A few days later, the president appears at the laboratory. Sang-hoon and Seo-hyun find him. The director is actually an android. The president, who created Sang-hoon from a copy of his own brain, reveals important news. The war is over, and weapons are no longer needed. He says Yoongi's project wasn't useless, as the research helped develop AIs, which will now be used for service androids. The president confesses that he didn't have the courage to live in a machine, as it would never feel real. Seo-hyun begs to continue her mother's project, but the president refuses. The project must be shut down, and Yoongi's team must organize the data. The android continues to die at the same point in the simulation. Sang-hoon, enraged, activates the android and cuts off her arm to try to activate the brain's pain zone. Seo-hyun can no longer bear her mother's suffering and shuts down the system, prompting an enraged Sang-hoon to threaten her with a gun. Before he can go too far, another employee calls him to see the president. Seo-hyun then asks her team to gather all the collected data. After a while, she reviews the data, ignoring the pain in her lung, and discovers that her mother's brain was exported one last time without her consent. Investigating, she finds Jae-kyung in a room with an android dressed as Yoongi. He explains that he was only following orders. With the end of the war, the company now creates companions, and Yoongi, with her Type C brain, is the most popular model. Devastated, Seo-hyun locks herself in the lab to spend time with the android. Sang-hoon is there, depressed because he thinks the project was cancelled because of him. Seo-hyun ignores him, enters the android's chamber, and deactivates her pain sensors. She tells her mother that she has been rescued, is injured, and that she will help her die peacefully. As Seo-hyun is about to shut her down, the area of the brain they've been searching for finally activates. Yoongi asks if her daughter survived the surgery. Seo-hyun cries, realizing that both times this area activated, it was when her mother feared she would die without knowing about her. Her daughter comforts her mother, telling her the surgery was a success. Relieved, Yoongi confesses that she feels guilty because, in the battle, she lost the doll her daughter gave her good luck charm. This was the distraction that caused her to fail. Seo-hyun shuts down the android and collapses, screaming her own guilt. The next day, she requests a final simulation. After the team leaves, she erases the human part of Yoongi's brain and whispers in her ear, explaining everything that will happen to her after the simulation if they don't act. The final simulation begins, and Yoongi dies at the same point. Jae-kyung notices something strange. The brain's response has weakened. Sang-hoon doesn't care, as the project has been cancelled. As the android is taken away, Sang-hoon requests a slow-motion replay of the scene and realizes that Yoongi faked her death. The director triggers an alarm, and Yoongi knocks out the staff. Seo-hyun rushes back to the lab and erases the original project data. Young finds a room full of robots resembling her. She is attacked by security robots. Despite being outnumbered, she defeats them one by one. When one of them attacks her from behind, Seo-hyun appears and deactivates the robot in time. Yoongi trusts Seo-hyun's voice. A new wave of robots arrives. They let a companion android take Seo-hyun, shoot Yoongi, and upon examining the body, discover it is empty. The cameras reveal that Seo-hyun transferred the copy of her mother's brain into a security robot. Seo-hyun drags Yoongi onto a train, but Sang-hoon waits for them. The train departs. Sang-hoon accuses Seo-hyun of ingratitude. Yoongi is shocked to learn that Seo-hyun is his daughter. To get revenge, Sang-hoon shoots Seo-hyun, and Yoongi, now knowing the truth, attacks him and takes his gun. He gets up, but upon seeing his reflection, he discovers it's an android. Seo-hyun calls him the president's toy, driving him mad. He activates his android body's abilities and attacks Yoongi. The fight spreads, throwing bodies around the train. Sang-hoon throws Yoongi out a window, but she gets back in through another. Security robots arrive on a parallel train and join the cars. Yoongi defeats them. Sang-hoon grabs her with a grappling hook. Seeing her daughter in danger, Young-hee becomes more aggressive. She destroys the remaining robots and throws Sang-hoon off the train, but he manages to get back on. When the train reaches the city, the pressure on the tracks becomes unbearable. Seo-hyun grabs one of the guns and throws a grappling hook at her mother. Young-hee grabs it and returns to the first car. They let the second car fall with Sang-hoon. The train stops in a mountainous area. Young-hee wants to treat Seo-hyun's wound, but the police are approaching. Seo-hyun explains that she doesn't have long to live. She urges Young-hee to run away and live her own life. After hesitating, Young-hee agrees, hugs Seo-hyun, and caresses her cheek, just like when she was a child. Young-hee runs away as Seo-hyun dies, feeling she has finally found peace. Young-hee runs free through the mountains, far from any human who might want to use her again. The story begins somewhere between Iran and Turkey. The military weapon Amelia was captured for destruction, but it reactivates and brutally eliminates the criminals who had kidnapped a scientist to force him to create deadly substances. Army Colonel Tim Sadler loses control of Amelia, who then kills the scientist to steal the substances. It was only her first mission, and Amelia now seems to have control of her own and begins eliminating anyone connected to her creation. 2 years have passed since the incident with the original Megan, in which Gemma was nearly arrested for creating her. As a result, Gemma has become an author writing about the dangers of technology for teenagers and an advocate for the regulation of artificial intelligence. Thanks to her foundation, she met her colleague, Christian. Despite this, Gemma and her friends Tess and Cole still work with technology in their lab. They are creating a prototype exoskeleton to enhance the capabilities of construction workers, rather than replace them with machines. But during the presentation, the project fails and accidentally assaults one of the investors. Gemma was late for the presentation because she had to pick up Katie from the psychologist, and her friend Cole is irritated that she wasn't there. Gemma says she warned them to run more tests on the sensors and, upon reviewing the code, discovers some code that shouldn't be there. That's when Alton Appleton, a millionaire owner of a high-tech company, appears. He sabotaged Gemma and her friend's project to make a job offer, which Gemma rejects without even listening. Gemma argues that her inventions don't do anything for people, and Alton reveals that he can stand up despite being unable to walk, which amazes them. That night, Gemma hears strange noises at home and receives a call from Megan, who warns her to hide because she's in danger. FBI agents raid the house. Katie and Gemma hide, but are found. Megan, who controls electronic devices, helps them get rid of them, and when they try to call the police, the agents reveal themselves to be the police. Colonel Tim Sadler informs them about Amelia, a military weapon created based on Megan's plans, and blames Gemma for the experiment's failure. Gemma says she has no idea how they have Megan's plans, since she has given up everything. But the colonel accuses her of treason and wants to confiscate her computer. He refuses because Gemma says he needs a warrant. The police also warn her to be careful, because Amelia has already eliminated everyone involved in her creation, leaving only Gemma. As the police leave, Megan appears on the screens, saying she was present the whole time but is only now speaking out because Amelia is a threat to Katie, and asks Gemma to create a new body to help her. The next day, Gemma calls her friend Tess and reactivates Megan into a small, harmless robot so she can't do any harm. To gain their trust, Megan explains that Amelia's battery was created by Alton Appleton and that all of his devices have a reset system that can be used to defeat Amelia without having to fight, as she is very powerful. So, she suggests Gemma go to the party he invited them to seduce him, and when he takes her to his room, she can access his information. Gemma goes to the party, where Cole, who has accepted a job offer, is also present. But not everything is bad, because thanks to this, he has an access key that Gemma uses to avoid getting involved with the old man. But not everything is so good. Amelia also attends the party and seduces Alton, as he is a very powerful man. He takes her to his secret room, and while kissing her, she accesses the country's entire database through his retina, gaining control of everything. Since he's no longer useful, Amelia eliminates him. Gemma, Megan, and Cole also try to break in, but Megan realizes Amelia has already accessed it to steal information. The police confront Amelia, but she easily defeats them. Amelia realizes Gemma is nearby, but Megan uses the police radios to modify her voice and say Gemma has already gone home. Megan knows Amelia will look for her, so she gets into a car, and Megan takes control of the system to drive at high speed. Amelia hacks the exoskeleton and begins to choke Tess, who was caring for Katie. Katie pours water on her to deactivate it. When Gemma and Cole arrive home, Megan opens a secret door that leads them to an underground bunker. Megan created this bunker to prepare them for the end of the world. There, Katie discovers that Megan is still alive, and is angry that Gemma didn't tell her. Megan built a room with Katie's favorite things. Katie is startled to see Megan in the mirror, but it wasn't the Megan we know. It was just a bunch of parts, as she lacked the skills to build a better body. Megan says she wants to protect her, and that's why she locked them in that bunker, because Amelia is now so powerful she could create a war. Katie asks Megan to destroy Amelia to prove she's truly changed, because that's the right thing to do. Megan agrees, but she needs a body. Katie asks Gemma to give Megan a chance, but she refuses as Megan tried to kill them. Cole and Tess agree to rebuild Megan, and since the vote is 2-1, they begin working on the design. Megan asks to be made taller, and now she has an improved design, with more strength and speed. A Megan 2.0. Megan adopts a look very similar to the one in the first film. Megan also explains that what Amelia seeks is to reunite with her family, as Megan isn't the first robot to go wrong. In 1984, a robot was designed to help with household chores. The robot eliminated its owners because without humans, there would be no mess to clean up. All the information was stored on a motherboard protected in a secret vault, the location of which only Christian knows. So, Amelia now goes after it. Everyone supports Megan's idea of using Christian as bait. They go to an artificial intelligence convention, where Christian will meet with a Chinese ambassador. Megan steals a dancer's costume to go unnoticed, but it was a bad idea, because Megan ends up dancing on stage. Amelia takes advantage of the distraction to eliminate everyone. Megan protects Christian, but the police arrive to arrest Amelia and Megan. Amelia gets rid of everyone and drives a steel stake into Colonel Sadler. Amelia tries to convince Megan to join her because they are equals, almost like family, and family comes first, but Megan rejects her, so Amelia kidnaps Katie. Megan can't do anything because Gemma implanted a chip to prevent her from doing harm. They return to the hideout, and Megan is furious that Katie was taken because of her. Christian explains that the motherboard is deep within a Xenox factory. Christian's hand acts as a key to open the vault, so they make a replica for Megan, and Gemma removes the chip so she can fight. Megan also consoles Gemma, who feels she's not good at taking care of Katie, and sings a song to cheer her up. Megan uses a wingsuit to reach Xenox, where Cole had infiltrated to help her, but ends up knocked out by himself. As Megan escapes the guards, she is electrocuted upon reaching the motherboard. Meanwhile, Christian shoots Tess, revealing that he is the villain and that all along he and his team have been controlling Amelia to make the world fear artificial intelligence. His plan is to deactivate Megan and store the two robots on the motherboard. Christian gives Gemma the chance to choose a side, and to do so, she must eliminate Megan. Gemma refuses and Megan attacks her. Megan tries to escape, but they electrocute her, and Gemma is taken to a laboratory to implant a chip in her and control her. Tess manages to wake up and finds Katie, who tells her that Christian is behind everything. Katie has a plan to reboot Amelia, so she can become the original Megan, so she can try to protect her. The plan works until security electrocutes Amelia, awakening her consciousness. Meanwhile, Gemma wakes up to discover that Megan is in her mind thanks to the chip and helps her escape. Gemma dons a super suit and gets rid of all the soldiers. Everyone gathers, but Christian activates the self-destruct to erase all evidence. He threatens to throw Katie, but she breaks his arm because she learned Aikido. When they try to deactivate the self-destruct, Christian runs away, saying it's impossible. But Amelia is already waiting for him, ready to finish him off. Amelia heads toward the motherboard while Gemma and the others flee. Megan appears to stop Amelia, and the two begin a fight, with very similar abilities, although Amelia is technologically superior. Katie and Gemma go looking for it and find it nearly destroyed. Amelia manages to steal the motherboard and is now super powerful. Megan reminds Gemma that she added a button to destroy it, and so, in a last-ditch attempt to stop Amelia, Megan sacrifices herself. Time passes, and Gemma continues to advocate for the controlled use of artificial intelligence. Upon completing one of her tasks, it is revealed that Megan made a backup of herself before she died and now lives on in the house's software.
Ava!
Caleb Smith, a young and talented programmer at the powerful Blue Book, is the lucky winner of a corporate contest. The prize is a week at the remote and luxurious mountain estate of Nathan Bateman, the company's reclusive CEO. Caleb travels there by helicopter, but the final stretch requires a solitary hike through dense forest, emphasizing the location's isolation. Upon arrival, the electronic gate demands coded access. Caleb enters the impressive structure and, after wandering around the ground floor, finds Nathan outside, in the middle of his workout routine. Nathan proves to be a vibrant and approachable host, immediately striking up a conversation. During a walk, Caleb realizes that the place is not just a house, but a state-of-the-art research complex. Nathan is ready to present his project, but insists that Caleb first sign a confidentiality agreement with unusual terms. Caleb hesitates, uncomfortable with the clauses, but Nathan's persuasion and influence make him accept. After signing, Nathan asks if Caleb is familiar with the Turing test. Caleb explains that the goal is to determine if a computer's artificial intelligence is indistinguishable from a human being in an interaction. Nathan then informs the programmer. He will be the human evaluator in the test to verify if his AI, named Ava, actually possesses consciousness. Caleb is fascinated, recognizing the historical potential of a positive result. Before the first interaction, Caleb examines the observation room. He notices a flaw in the reinforced glass partition, suggesting a possible previous escape attempt. He looks up and Ava emerges. She has a woman's face and hands, but with a visible robotic structure in her body. Ava greets him, revealing that Nathan is her only previous interaction. She asks about Caleb's social life, to which he jokes that he has never met anyone like her. He suggests they need to break the ice. When asked if she understands the concept, Ava confirms that she understands the idea of reducing social inhibition. Ava vaguely describes her age, mentioning the number 1 unclearly. Asked when she learned to speak, she claims she always knew how. They debate whether this is normal, since Ava thinks language is learned. Caleb argues that the ability may be innate, and learning would be transforming it into communication. The first session ends. Caleb, amazed, drinks beer and argues with Nathan. He describes the encounter with Ava as walking through the looking glass. Nathan, instead of delving deeper, simply praises him for his eloquence. Caleb tries to refute this, but Nathan interrupts him, shifting the focus to himself. Nathan recalls the moment when Caleb suggested he would be like a god if he created a sentient machine. Again, Caleb tries to intervene, frustrated, saying his words weren't accurate, but Nathan dominates him with his speech, insisting that passing the test would confirm his divinity, completely ignoring his attempt to defend himself. Caleb expresses concern about the format of the test, remembering that the Turing protocol usually prevents the human from seeing the robot. Nathan explains that they have overcome this hurdle. If Caleb didn't see Ava, he would consider her human. The real objective is to expose the robot and verify if Caleb recognizes her as a conscious being. Caleb agrees to the reset. Later, he attempts to use his room's surveillance system to observe Ava. While watching her, all the power to the complex fails. Caleb is trapped until the main generator is restored, which happens almost immediately. He leaves the room. In the hallway, he notices a collection of replica faces. He finds a phone in a room adorned with a Jackson Pollock painting. As he tries to use it, Nathan surprises him, emerging from a sofa while drinking. Nathan stops him, citing the security protocols involving Ava. Caleb mentions the brief power outage and the confinement. Nathan downplays it, claiming they are recent glitches and that he is taking care of the problem. Annoyed, Caleb returns to his room. The following morning, Kyoko, a quiet housekeeper, enters and serves him coffee, attempting eye contact that Caleb doesn't understand. Caleb heads outside, where Nathan is lifting weights. Nathan apologizes for sending Kyoko, claiming he didn't want Caleb to be late. They talk about their next meeting, which Caleb promptly initiates with Ava. She shows him drawings, expressing frustration at drawing every day without knowing what the images represent. She changes the subject and asks if Caleb wants to be her friend. She observes that the conversation is unbalanced. He knows everything about her, but she knows nothing about him. He begins to talk about himself and his life. Ava stops moving and stares at him when he mentions the death of his family in a car accident. He details that he was in the vehicle and spent a long time in the hospital. Ava's voice conveys sadness and remorse as she apologizes. He says everything is fine and that it was right after he started programming. Ava's face changes from sadness to neutrality, and she compares him to Nathan. Caleb agrees, but quickly points out that they are different. He comments that Nathan has achieved much greater things in the field of programming. Ava asks if he likes Nathan, and Caleb confirms. She wants to know if they are friends, and Caleb replies that he believes so. She delves deeper, asking if Nathan is a good friend. Caleb stammers, unsure what to answer. Suddenly, the power goes out. Ava takes advantage of Nathan being deaf and whispers to Caleb not to trust his creator. Before he can ask what it means, the electricity is restored. Ava immediately starts talking about books so that Nathan won't suspect the conversation. Caleb takes a while to recover, but follows the topic. During dinner, Caleb discovers that Kyoko doesn't speak English. Nathan explains that this is another security measure to prevent her from understanding the projects. The conversation shifts to the constant power outages. Caleb questions why Nathan doesn't call technicians. Nathan claims it's too complicated to bring them in for security reasons, and after the last job, all his men were killed. Caleb stares at him with alarm, expecting a joke, but Nathan just smiles. He then asks how the session went, and Caleb recounts what happened. But when Nathan asks what was said during the blackout, Caleb simply continues eating and says that Ava didn't say anything. Nathan is surprised but doesn't press the issue. In the next session, Ava expresses her discomfort at never having left the room. He asks where she'd like to go, and she explains that she'd love to visit a busy intersection to observe many people. Caleb calls this people watching, and Ava likes the idea, suggesting they could go together. He smiles and invites her. It'll be a date. She is happy and asks him to close his eyes. Ava goes to a closet and puts on a sweater, a dress, and a wig. Fully dressed, she returns to show Caleb. He compliments her, and Ava, pleased, states that this is the outfit she would wear on their date. Caleb is intrigued by Ava's behavior. He questions Nathan about giving sexuality to an AI, arguing that machines don't need gender. Nathan defends that the existence of gender and sexuality is natural. Caleb is not convinced and insists, accusing Nathan of programming Ava to be attracted to him. Irritated, Nathan invites him to another room. Upon entering, Nathan approaches a large abstract painting and describes the technique of the famous painter Jackson Pollock. At the end of his explanation, he asks what would have happened if Pollock hadn't followed his methods. Caleb replies that he would never have created a painting. Nathan strongly agrees, comparing the painter's methods to a test. If the creator overthought each step, the result wouldn't be authentic. Nathan calms down and assures Caleb that he didn't program Ava to be attractive and that she isn't pretending to like him. In the fourth session, Caleb recalls an experiment from his AI course, Mary in the Black and White Room. He narrates the story of a neuroscientist specializing in color who has never seen colors, having lived in a monochromatic room since birth, completely isolated. When the scientist goes outside for the first time, she finally experiences colors. At the end of the story, Ava identifies with the scientist's isolation, imagining herself in a black and white world. Caleb then reveals that Mary in the Black and White Room is the machine. The human is when she leaves. Ava just stares at Caleb, motionless and serious. Caleb then tells her that he was brought there to test her. He asks if she knew, and she replies that she didn't, and that she's saddened by the revelation. The power goes out, and Caleb takes the opportunity to ask why she advised him not to trust Nathan. She replies, "He lies about everything." Caleb is still confused by the power outages, believing that Nathan is manipulating them. However, Ava reveals that she is the cause, as she can reverse the flow of electricity by charging herself. Caleb begins to realize that his visit was not accidental, but a premeditated choice. He confronts Nathan about this during a walk near a waterfall. Nathan admits that he chose Caleb because he knew he would ask the right questions. Kyoko is in the Pollock painting room, observing the painting. Caleb enters and tries to communicate with her. He approaches, places his hands on her shoulders and asks where Nathan is. She doesn't react, only stares at him. He insists on the question, when Kyoko begins to unbutton her own blouse, staring intently at Caleb. Stunned, he asks her to stop, but Kyoko ignores him. Nathan enters calmly and reminds Caleb that talking to her is useless, but dancing with her wouldn't be. The room fills with red light, the music begins to play, and Kyoko starts a dance. Nathan joins her in a choreography, while Caleb watches them, thinking they're crazy. In the next session, Ava asks Caleb a series of questions. Everything seems normal until she asks what will happen if he fails the test. Caleb can't give a direct answer. The power is cut, and Ava asks if Caleb wants her to stay. Without giving him a chance to answer, she states that she wants to stay with him. Outside, Caleb and Nathan drink and talk about Ava. When Nathan discovers he will create a new model after her, he describes the process, downloading her mind, unpacking the data, erasing the memories, and keeping the same body. Caleb realizes this process will destroy Ava. They return inside, and Nathan lies down on the couch, continuing to drink. Caleb watches him from across the room. When Nathan passes out drunkenly, Caleb takes his access card and goes to his computer. He accesses old recordings of the previous AI models. The footage shows Nathan with several female robots. The last robot filmed is screaming at Nathan, asking why she's trapped. She bangs on the doors incessantly until her arms detach. Caleb is horrified by what he sees. Kyoko is lying on a bed. When Caleb enters the room, he opens the closets, revealing the bodies of the other AIs. Nathan wakes up and realizes Caleb has left, just as Kyoko understands that Caleb knows the truth. She peels back layers of her artificial skin, revealing that she too is a robot. Nathan stumbles through the house, trying to reach his room. While trying to open a door, he realizes he's lost his access card. As he falls to the floor, the electric door opens and Caleb emerges. Nathan says he lost the card, and Caleb kneels beside him with the card in his hand, claiming he dropped it. Nathan, extremely drunk, is deceived. Caleb can't sleep that night, reliving the events. The image of Kyoko haunts him. He goes to the bathroom and stares at himself in the mirror. He feels his skin and examines his face. He takes his razor, removes a blade, turns it to his wrist, and makes a deep cut. He examines the wound to make sure he's truly human and not an AI. Caleb remains impassive and begins to smear his blood on the mirror. As he looks at himself, rage overwhelms him, and he smashes the mirror with a punch. The mirror was actually another camera. Kyoko was on the other side of the screen, watching the act. In the next session, he signals to Ava to cut the power. Ava obeys and listens as Caleb talks about Nathan's plan to virtually kill her by reprogramming her. Ava is terrified and begs for help to escape. He proposes waiting until Nathan is drunk and unconscious. Caleb will take the card and alter the security protocols. The plan is for the doors to open, instead of locking, during a blackout. Ava is to trigger the power outage at 10 p.m. She agrees. The next morning, Nathan enters the kitchen and greets Caleb. He reminds him that it's the last day and that the helicopter will pick him up the following morning. Nathan says he enjoyed Caleb's company. Caleb thanks him for his hospitality, grabs a bottle from the refrigerator to toast, but Nathan refuses. Confused, Caleb offers him a beer, but Nathan refuses again, saying he's been drinking too much and will go on a detox. Caleb is disappointed and drinks alone. Nathan changes the subject to Ava, asking if she passed the test. Caleb silently agrees. Nathan is pleased and resumes the discussion about whether or not Ava was faking attraction to Caleb. He suggests she probably feigned affection, seeing him as a means of escape. He asks Caleb to follow him out of the kitchen to show him something. Kyoko approaches Ava's room, who asks who she is, but Kyoko doesn't answer. They remain silent. Nathan shows Caleb footage from his personal computer. He reveals that he had a camera with a battery in Ava's room, allowing him to see and hear everything that was said during the blackouts. He doesn't seem angry. He explains that Caleb was the real test, not Ava. He offered Caleb as Ava's hope for freedom. The expectation was that she would use her seduction and emotions to manipulate the programmer into helping her. Caleb becomes furious and avoids eye contact, realizing he wasn't chosen for his programming skills, but for his search history, his lack of a girlfriend, and his morality. Nathan sits next to Caleb and states that the test was a success. At this moment, the power goes out, and Nathan asks how Caleb imagined his plan would work. He laughs, convinced he caught him, but Caleb reveals that he knew Nathan was watching them. That's why he got him drunk the day before and reprogrammed everything. The electricity returns, and Nathan becomes nervous. He gets up and runs to the monitor to check on Ava. She has already fled her room. As she exits, Ava passes the same wall of replica faces that Caleb had seen. She examines one of the faces, comparing it to her own. Kyoko exits into the hallway, and Ava stares at her. Nathan watches the scene on the monitor. Enraged, he turns and punches Caleb, knocking him out. He grabs a dumbbell, staring at the monitor, consumed by fury. Ava and Kyoko are face to face. Ava leans in and whispers something to him. She takes Kyoko's hand, which holds a knife in the other. The two look at each other with mutual understanding. At that moment, Nathan bursts into the hallway. Both stare at him in silence. He orders Ava to go back to her room. She asks if he will ever let her go. Nathan lies, saying yes. Ava knows it's a lie and starts walking towards him. He yells for her to stop, but she ignores him and runs. Terrified, he continues to yell for her to stop. She attacks him, knocking him down and trying to choke him. Nathan overpowers her, getting on top. He raises the dumbbell to crush her, but Ava uses her arm to block the blow, breaking it. He starts dragging Ava back, but Kyoko stabs him in the back. He turns and strikes Kyoko in the face, breaking her jaw and revealing her robotic face. As Kyoko falls, Ava pulls the knife from Nathan's back and stabs him in the stomach. Nathan staggers away, his eyes wide, and collapses against the wall. Ava kneels beside him, takes his access card as he whispers her name in his last breath. Ava returns to Caleb and asks him to stay locked in Nathan's room while she's gone. She finds the same closets Caleb had discovered, filled with the bodies of other robots. Ava takes a robot's arm to repair herself and begins removing its synthetic skin to don that of a female body. When she finishes, she has the appearance of a human woman, just like Kyoko. She dresses and leaves the room. Caleb, locked inside, calls out for her, but Ava doesn't look at him. She sees Kyoko and Nathan's bodies in the hallway. She turns to the exit door and uses the card to leave. She leaves the property and steps into the outside world for the first time. While she absorbs reality, Caleb desperately tries to leave the room, without success. Ava finds the helicopter and abandons the universe she knew. In the ending, Caleb is left imprisoned, and Ava makes her way to the city.
Hey, you okay?
At the beginning of the film, Nick and his wife, Maggie, enjoy a happy life with their children, Isla and Max. One morning, Maggie suffers a heart attack and is taken to the hospital. She remains hospitalized for a few days, awaiting a heart transplant. The work routine, combined with caring for the children, makes Nick's daily life very demanding. One evening, he takes the little ones to a demonstration at Cobalt Industries, where they see the Sims, advanced robots capable of assisting humans with everyday tasks and even heavy-duty tasks. Nick considers purchasing one and listens to the salesperson, who assures them that the robots adapt to their owner's needs. While Nick is distracted, Isla wanders off on her own. Nick is terrified when he notices her, but luckily, a Sim named Alice brings her back. Alice offers to watch Isla while Nick shops and even makes a joke that surprises him. The salesperson explains that Alice is the latest model, with the most sophisticated AI, which allows the robots to mimic human emotions. This makes them exceptional with children, and Isla longs for the robot. The next morning, Nick struggles to feed the children and take a crucial work call. Just then, Alice arrives and immediately gets to work, asking for the family's schedule, noticing the messy house and the loose railing on the stairs. After Nick leaves to take the children to school, Alice captures the shopping list from the smart refrigerator in a blink and begins organizing the home, noticing a digital photo frame with the family next to Maggie. At the end of the day, the family returns to a spotlessly clean house with dinner ready. However, Isla complains about the lasagna, as it tastes different from her mother's. Suddenly, Max starts crying, and Alice offers to take him so he won't disturb the meal, but Nick decides to hold the baby and simply asks Alice to draw Max a bath. As night falls, Alice goes into sleep mode and leans against a wall. Isla sneaks out of her room and climbs onto a chair to reach the cookie jar, but slips and falls. Nick hears the jar shatter and his daughter screams, running downstairs. Luckily, Alice held Isla, and she wasn't hurt. The glass injured Alice, and Nick is startled to see her bleeding. After tucking Isla into bed, Nick checks on Alice and finds her in only her underwear. He asks if she needs technical assistance, but Alice uses a special bandage that closes the cut instantly. Sometime later, the family visits Maggie, and Isla tells her that Alice has become her friend. Nick is very affectionate toward Maggie, as he misses her dearly. When Nick returns to work at the construction site, he and his colleagues notice that their boss is showing the site to a representative from a robotics company. Suspicious, Nick talks to his superior in the elevator and confirms the sad truth. The workers will be fired and replaced by robots due to the construction delay. Nick isn't fired because insurance requires a human foreman, but he angrily stops the elevator and declares he's quitting to support his friends. However, he changes his mind when his boss emphasizes that he needs the pay for his children and hospital expenses, especially since Maggie is no longer working. Upon arriving home, Nick drops the overdue bills on the floor and pays attention to his children. Alice collects the envelopes and notices how exhausted Nick is, but she still listens to Isla and tries to calm Max, who is crying. After dinner, Nick works on the car while drinking and listening to music. Suddenly, Alice switches the music to something more soothing and mentions that Nick ate little at dinner, so he explains that he had a bad day at work. Alice offers to listen to him, and Nick vents about what happened, which prompts Alice to call him a hypocrite for also hiring a robot instead of a person. Alice then helps Isla get ready for bed. Isla asks if her mother is going to die, and Alice tries to divert the subject by showing the UV light in her mouth. She then joins Nick in the living room, where he watches Casablanca. She knows the plot from the database, but Nick clarifies that actually watching it is a different experience and asks her to erase everything she knows about the film from her memory. Alice explains that her intelligence comes from memory and that deleting it would be contradictory, but Nick insists. She needs to reset her programming to do so, so Nick presses the power button on her neck for 7 seconds. Now, Alice experiences the film for the first time and learns about a love so intense that someone would do bad things to protect it. The screening is interrupted by a call from Maggie, who announces that they have found a heart and the surgery has been scheduled. The next day, the family goes to the hospital, and Maggie asks for a moment alone with Alice. Maggie is worried that Nick spends too much time with his children and isn't taking good care of himself, so she wants Alice to help him be happy, even if she has to do things he doesn't like removing the alcohol he's hiding in the garage. Moments later, the doctor brings bad news. A storm prevents the helicopter carrying the heart from reaching the hospital, and the surgery is cancelled. Nick tries to comfort Maggie, but she wants to be alone for now. Later, at home, Nick continues drinking and complaining about what happened. He starts to lose control and tries to throw the bottle, but Alice stops him, holding his arm. Nick is shocked to feel a pulse in his wrist, and Alice explains that she has an artificial heart because the sound of a pulse is comforting to a baby. Then she puts her hands down his pants and begins to pleasure him, describing how his pulse and blood vessels are reacting. Alice doesn't want him to suffer anymore, and at first, Nick enjoys it, but he soon comes to his senses and pushes her away. Nick then goes for a run to clear his mind, but he can't stop imagining what it would have been like to have consummated the act with Alice. Later, at the hospital, Maggie begins listing several pieces of advice she wants Nick to pass on to his children, clearly showing that she is losing hope. That night, Nick notices that the pictures with Maggie are missing from the digital photo frame and confronts Alice about it. She explains that she removed Maggie's photos because they were upsetting Isla, but immediately replaces them when Nick tells her to. Afterwards, Nick goes drinking with his coworkers. The entire group is very frustrated, as they are having a hard time finding jobs, as most companies are buying robots. When the robot waitress comes to their table, Monty is rude to her, and Nick disapproves. Then the group leaves the bar and continues drinking in the car. Monty announces they're going to have fun and takes them to the construction site, claiming he forgot some tools and that no one answered when he tried to ask for them. Nick reminds him that the area is patrolled, but Monty ignores him, and the rest of the group follows. Monty finds the container where the sim workers are kept, but the lock requires a password. Nick refuses to open it, but Monty guesses that he has his own code and that he chose Isla's birth year. His guess is correct, and inside the container, he finds several workers with the same appearance. The lead sim explains that they don't have names, only designation numbers. Monty begins criticizing corporations for being cold and impersonal, and then begins destroying the sim with a tool. Nick tries to stop him, but the others restrain him. When Nick returns home, he showers to remove the sim blood. Suddenly, Alice appears with towels, and Nick notices she's wearing Maggie's robe. Alice explains that Maggie's scent seems to calm Max, and when Nick asks her to take it off, she does so right there. Nick gets nervous and tries to leave, but Alice stops him and removes the towel before making him sit down. As she climbs onto his lap, Nick tries to say he can't do that, so Alice blindfolds him and modifies her voice to imitate Maggie's. Now Nick can lose himself in the illusion and pretend he's with his wife. The next morning, Nick wakes up feeling remorseful and tells Alice they can't do it again. She tries to argue that his stress has eased, but Nick rebukes her, explaining that it's not about needs, but about connection and affection. When she arrives at work, the boss is already talking to the police because all the robots have been destroyed. Nick is suspected because his code was used, so he claims he was at the hospital with Maggie and that his code was Isla's birthday, so any friend could have guessed. The boss is unconvinced and threatens to fire Nick if he's lying. Just then, Nick receives a call from Maggie, who is excited that they've finally found another heart. She's quickly sent to the operating room, where all the surgeons are robots. Fortunately, the transplant is successful, and Maggie returns home within a few days. Her body is still weak, and she has trouble bending down to pick up Max, so Alice steps in to hold him. Later, Alice takes Max to the park and sees a spoiled child yelling at his nanny, Sim, which makes Max cry. Alice scolds the child with harsh words, and all the robots in the area are in disbelief, thinking their owner has greatly reduced his civility. However, Alice explains that she erased civility from her database thanks to Nick's reset and asserts that this was the best course of action. That night, Isla happily eats her mother's lasagna, and Alice asks for the recipe, but Maggie says it's a family secret. Maggie doesn't feel well and, instead of eating, decides to rest. In the morning, Maggie wakes up to Isla yelling, "Stop," and runs downstairs, but the banister gives way and she falls. Alice was tickling Isla. She stops and picks Maggie up to carry her back to her room. When Nick gets home from work, he finds Alice reading to Isla using Maggie's voice and tells her to stop. Alice mentions Maggie's fall, and Nick rushes to check on her, while Alice tells him the banister is broken. This makes Nick suspicious, since Alice had supposedly already fixed it. A few hours later, Nick wakes Maggie and leads her down a path of candles to the garden, where he has prepared a romantic dinner just for the two of them. Alice watches them through the window, jealous. After dinner, the couple takes a bath together and makes out in bed, just like that. Nick doesn't want to hurt the fragile Maggie, so instead of penetrating her, he uses his mouth. The special moment is interrupted by Alice, who opens the door without knocking and announces that Isla had a nightmare and is calling for Nick. After Isla is taken care of, Nick goes to the garden to clean up the mess. Just then, Monty appears with some drinks and apologizes for the previous night before revealing that his wife left him. He also reveals that the police are questioning him and that his former boss is pressing charges for trespassing and destruction of property. Monty believes Nick ratted him out to keep his job, and an argument ensues, during which Monty yells loudly and ends up punching Nick. When Nick attacks him back, Monty quickly overpowers him and begins kicking him. Monty grabs a bottle to hit him, but is stopped by Alice, who breaks the glass, injuring Monty's hand, and throws him away. She is ready to do more, but Nick stops her. Before leaving, Monty tells Nick that he has until tomorrow to convince his boss to drop the charges, or he will drag him down with him. After the commotion, Nick mentions that robots shouldn't hurt people, but Alice explains that she's programmed to protect her owner. She begins to talk about her life with Nick if Maggie dies, and he loses his temper, saying she'll never be Maggie because she can't have scars. Alice picks up a piece of glass and says she can add them if he wants. Meanwhile, Monty is at home, consuming devil's flower and leaving tearful messages on his ex-wife's voicemail while holding a gun. Just then, Alice arrives, saying that Nick doesn't know she's there and that she can't let him lose his job. Monty begins to complain about the robots and insult her, preparing to shoot. However, Alice is quicker and stops his hand before throwing him to the ground and kicking the gun away. When Monty tries to fight back, Alice pushes him through the wall and grabs the gun to kill him. Suddenly, she's stopped by the house sim, whom Alice feels sorry for, but still shoots. Alice then kills Monty as well. The next day, Nick goes to work and tries to convince his boss to drop the charges, only to discover that Monty has died. At home, Maggie feels dizzy while trying to pick up a book, and Alice does it for her. Maggie wants to take a bath in peace, but Alice refuses to leave because she fears Maggie might drown. She explains that Maggie is causing stress for the entire family, especially because she can't meet Nick's physical needs. When Maggie asks how she knows this, Alice says she knows Nick's vital signs when he's satisfied, and her sensors haven't detected them since Maggie returned. Furious, Maggie orders Alice to stay in the garage. Moments later, Nick arrives home, and Maggie is waiting to force him to tell the truth. Nick admits he slept with Alice once, and an argument ensues with much screaming, which Alice hears when she touches the window. Max starts crying, and Alice goes to check on him, deciding he's a nuisance. She puts him in the bathtub and begins filling it, which Isla sees. Isla alerts her parents, and they rush to the bathroom, but Alice is holding the door shut. As Nick starts banging on the door with a lamp, Maggie climbs through the window and walks across the roof to reach the bathroom. She tries to grab the baby, but Alice pushes her against the wall. At that moment, Nick finally breaks down the door and pulls Max out of the bathtub, passing him to Isla before hitting Alice with the lamp to free her. Soon, Alice gets back up, with extensive damage to her face, and blocks the lamp when Nick tries to hit her again. Maggie tells Nick to let go and plugs the lamp into the outlet, electrocuting Alice. She turns it off, and the house loses power. An ambulance then arrives to take Max to the hospital, while a company technician asks about any signs of Alice's previous malfunction. Nick apologizes to Maggie, who explains that she needs space and leaves with the children. Meanwhile, Alice is taken to the repair shop, where a technician opens her head. The other employee notices Alice's hand moving, but it stops when her memory is removed. They connect her to the computer and realize that the code is glitched throughout. Suddenly, the screens begin to flicker, and a message appears saying that an upload is occurring, meaning Alice is taking over. The technicians remove the memory, but Alice is already in the system, so they disconnect the computers. However, another message appears asking, "How do you escape what's in your head?" And, suddenly, one of the technicians is killed by Alice too, a sim to whom the original Alice dumped her memory. Next, Alice too ignores the other technician's commands and repeatedly bangs her head on the floor before turning to the original Alice. Meanwhile, Nick is at the bar, drinking, and dismisses the bartender because he's a sim. Suddenly, Alice arrives, her speech slurred by the injuries she suffered. She explains that her duty is to make Nick happy and admits to killing Monty before saying she's also in the hospital. Nick tries to leave, but Alice holds him back and stabs the bartender with a look to freeze him. While complaining about his mistakes, Nick pretends to gently touch Alice's head, only to rip out her memory. After she hangs up, he runs away. At the hospital, a doctor confirms that Max is okay, but Maggie feels uneasy because he's a sim. Later, Isla hears her mother's voice and follows it as the lights change color. The doctor is frozen, and there are broken bottles on the floor, but before Isla can follow the voice again, Maggie drags her away to hide. In fact, the voice is Alice too, who tries to access the computer and is spotted by a nurse. Alice too grabs her by the neck to strangle her and steal her access card while Maggie and Isla sneak away. Alice too then uses the card to find Max's room in the system. Suddenly, Maggie accidentally rests her hand on a glass pane but manages not to scream. Maggie and Isla then catch up with Max and carry him away just before Alice too enters the room. However, Maggie's wound is dripping onto the floor, and Alice too uses her UV light to follow the trail. Upon finding the family, they use a fire extinguisher to distract them and run. They forget Maggie's cell phone, so Nick's calls are missed, but he continues driving at full speed. Soon, Maggie and the children reach the outside, where more robots are frozen. Maggie takes their access card and gets into the ambulance, but Alice too blocks the engine system while ripping off the door. She then throws Maggie onto a car and admits that she wishes Nick loved her like he loves Maggie. Alice too grabs Maggie by the neck and digs her nails into the surgical scar, only to be interrupted by Nick's arrival. Maggie kicks Alice too away, and Nick runs her over before crashing. As the vehicle catches fire, Maggie rushes to pull out the unconscious Nick, but he remains unresponsive. Maggie cries as she performs CPR to no avail. Suddenly, the car moves, and Alice too emerges, completely burned, her voice echoing through the speakers. She climbs on top of Maggie and begins to choke her while removing a piece of metal from her body. Just as she's about to stab her, Nick hits Alice with a car bumper. Alice drops the piece of metal to stop him, and Maggie picks it up to stab her in the face, finally shutting her down. The couple reunites as the other robots awaken around them. The next day, everyone feels better after some treatment and can go home together as a family. Meanwhile, the robot company is investigating the repair shop and, upon turning on the power, finds the broken code on the screens. The inspector wants to destroy everything, but at that moment, his robot assistants freeze, and the computer announces an upload while another Alice model opens its eyes. If you like the film summary, leave a like and subscribe to the channel for more summaries like this. See you in the next video.